I alone control the dragons. Or does he? Welcome, greetings, bienvenue, my followers of darkness, shadows, scavengers, and villains aficionados. Welcome to another Villains Review episode, and I'm your growl host, Lord of Shadows. I welcome you all. Yes, I do. And today we do have a very special villain to discuss about. So please get around, enjoy me while we do this deep dive into another villain. This time I had the pleasure to do a villain that is part of one of my most favorite franchises in the world. So in all my 29 years of living, which of course is How to Train Your Dragon. And of course, what better way to do it than, of course, talking about Drago Bludvist, the warlord, the conqueror, the bloke who shot Stoic the Vast, did call themselves the true dragon conqueror, and in the end met his demise by the one and only Hiccup Haddock III. And today I'm going to explore him with all of you listening. So without any further ado, let's begin. And now of the diabolical speech. First and foremost, I just want to say to everyone, I do apologize for not kind of keeping, the Monday thing, which I said before about my Villains Review episodes. But like ever since like Friday, I was really deep under the weather, ever since then for like 7 days, and like literally I didn't have any energy or like anything at all, to make to make videos, and like you made me even literally forgot to change the fucking schedule. Like it literally destroyed every single video I had scheduled like for this particular week, so I do want to apologize for that. But hey, none of us is Nostradamus or even Madame Web, to predict, when you're going to get sick, but it is what it is. Now, Drago Bludvist, as of course, as I said, maniacally, maniacally, I would say, diabolically, more precisely, Drago Bludvist, the leader of this, or should I say, the supreme commander of the dragon army, the dragon conqueror himself, so to speak, mortal enemy of Hiccup Haddock, Valka Haddock, Stoic the Vast, an entire book, with a dream to conquer all dragons, until later on he becomes a world-dominating type of villain, which of course he always was. Yeah, now basically Drago Bludvist. Now, as I mentioned a few seconds ago, Drago Bludvist was always one of my favorite villains in the How to Train Your Dragon franchise. I mean, of course, there's been a lot. There's been quite a few. Like, you had like from Drago Grimmel the Grizzly. You had Johan. You had Vigo Grimborn. You had his brother. You had, unfortunately, Dagger, the deranged leader of the Berserkers. There's been quite a few. I will admit. There's been quite a few. Of course, also not forget to mention Alvin the Treacherous. Like there's been a lot of How to Train Your Dragon villains, but Drago Bludvist was the very first one. I would even go as far as say, like, even today, that stays as like my number one favorite villain of the How to Train Your Dragon franchise. Now, when we talk about Drago Bludvist, what do we see? We basically see a guy who is a warlord, a conqueror, who has an army of men and dragons, and he only had one goal in particular, which of course is to rule the world, or slightly put in a different way, world domination. Now, from the beginning, he did say, that he vowed to rise above the fear of dragons and liberate the world. But we kind of all know that somewhere down the line, those kind of dreams can be twisted. So sure, at first he kind of started as a hero, but later on somewhere down the line, kind of like, saw a much more bigger, twisted picture, of what he can do, because if he trains and gathers more dragons, day after day after day. Now, when it comes to him, himself, like I said before, he's a very, very traditional, conquering, conquering barbarian, supreme commander of an army, type of like, villain, like you have to look at it in a perspective, in what particular era he belongs to, and so if you look at like, since, How to Train a Dragon is basically based in a Viking world, so Drago Bludvist, he's basically a very perfect villain for that particular era, which of course, is the age, in this case, is the age of Vikings, but even though I will say, his origin is kind of like very, simple, he uses like almost like very similar troops, like almost every single villain, does have, like, in every particular, like, fiction. But overall, there's a lot of, like, great qualities that, even a villain like him can have, even though a lot of people think like, he's a very basic villain and everything. But there's a lot of things, to consider, which I personally think, he makes him like a very, pretty good, like, solid villain, so to speak. Now, when it comes to, like, his overall, which I mentioned a few seconds ago. Now, when it comes to, like, overall origin, when, Hiccup and Drago first time, kind of collided, basically, Drago told him, that, I know what it is to live in fear, to see my village burned, my family taken, but even as a boy, left with nothing, I vowed to rise above the fear of dragons and liberate the people of this world. And basically, the speech goes on and on and on and on, but then, of course, he ends up saying something very very peculiar that kind of, made me realize, what I said again a few seconds ago when Hiccup told him, then why a dragon army? And Drago is like, well, you need dragons to conquer other dragons. And that is where Drago's noble crusade, or should I say heroic crusade, turned a twisted path. So as I mentioned before, like, at the very beginning, he saw this calling, he's gonna, liberate the world of dragons and everything, but and I don't know, how long, how long it took him, like, to basically go all twisted and everything, obsessed with power and all that. But the one thing for certain is that, which again, it's a very usual trope when it comes to, like, villains. He started all noble, all heroic, have this, like, very good deed / goal, kind of like, dream to liberate the world. And then somewhere down the line, he got all twisted, and kind of like, seeing his plan in a much more darker, bigger picture, Like, for example, because they said, you need dragons to conquer the dragons. Which, of course, at first, you kind of think like, oh, okay, to kind of hunt them down, and master it and everything. Okay, sure, I get it. I get you. But, as the, how can I put this, dragon recruitment progresses, basically, when he gets them more and more and more of them, he's like, he started to think like, I have this massive dragon army. I mean, what I can do with them? How peculiar. Could I, have my men, under control? Can I create a reputation as a conqueror / warlord? Can I conquer an island? Or maybe even the entire world? And that's where basically, Hiccup came with a solution, with the conclusion that, maybe you need dragons to conquer people, to control those who follow you and get rid of those who won't. Which again, boom, proves the exact point what I was saying. Basically, like he saw these dragons that he conquered. He saw them basically as a weapon. He saw them as an asset. He saw them as a pawn. He saw them like, as an instrument to how, to use them, for basically for his own selfish needs, which of course in this case is power and world domination. Now, of course, each and every plan, must be planned, one step at the way, every single step. But, and every single, magnificent plan needs a secret ingredient, which of course, in Drago's case, it was the Bewilderbeast. So I'll give him credit that, because, if you want to control, of course, he was trying, to control every single dragon, one by one. But if you want to control all of them, then of course you're going to need the Alpha, the Bewilderbeast, the king of all dragons. But what will happen if you have two? Well, that's very easy. You're going to need to get rid of the competition so that one Bewilderbeast can remain. So overall, the point I'm trying to say is I give him credits for planning. You could definitely see that Drago Bludvist does have some intelligence to plan all of this, to create this armada, to create the traps, how to use them, against the dragons, how to control them, from the hook, from the ships, from the men, from like even the dragon skin cloak and everything. Like, I will give him credit, to basically, plan all of this, But I will also give him, credit, like when it comes to like, positives and everything. Like, first and foremost, that which, all of this I just mentioned, definitely feels like, that this guy has no fear, which sometimes for a villain can be a good thing, but also can be a bad thing. I mean, like, we all know the saying, a fearless man is far more dangerous than a coward. And Drago, in this case, yes, he definitely looks like a fearless, villain and everything. But also, one thing I will also give him, he also is very has some skills in hand-to-hand combat. That's for sure. Even though he only has one arm, but but the one thing that always fascinated me was villains that have one part of their body missing. Like from Long John Silver, missing his leg. From like Drago Bludvist, missing his arm, or Captain Hook missing his hand. The point is, I'll give him credit for that, And again, he went up against like not simply Volca, but also like Stoic the Vast. Like he went up against him and defeat him. Well, not counting, of course, Gobber's mace hand and everything, But like he really stood up to him, like kind of really proving the Drago Bludvist can fight. Although I will say the biggest praises, and again, even like the overall physicality, you can see, this guy, has muscles. You can see like this guy, looks like and feels like a very skilled fighter. You can see that, and again, another thing which also I'm going to connect to it is that one of the positives I can give to Drago Bludvist's character is also, that he's a man of experience. I mean, not just simply, the age, I mean, I think like he's, like, I think 50 in the How to Train Your Dragon franchise, but overall, like, not just simply like from the muscles and everything, but like mostly from the scars, because this guy is covered in them, And of course, a lot of people will think like, oh, well, even the one hand missing, that's also part of the experience. It is. Although I kind of assume that comes from a dragon. Now, the question is, did that happen when his village was burned and his family was taken, or did he lost his arm while trying to train himself to know how to control dragons? Now, unfortunately, that's something that perhaps we will never know. But but again, it feels like, you can definitely see him as a villain. He's a man of experience. You can see that, for sure, again, like not just even in the way how he controls dragons, but like, hand-to-hand combat, the way he's built up and everything, like, yeah, he is a man of experience. He is an absolute, like, villainy veteran. Let's just put it that way. Now, when it comes to, like I mentioned before, like his goal, is very old school, very traditional, which of course is world domination, which is something, we have all seen before. In any type of fiction, when it comes to like books or comic books or video games or movies or TV shows, almost like every single villain, mostly actually, mostly if you look at, when it comes to speaking of animation, mostly if you look at like the, Saturday morning cartoons, that type of like villains, but mostly every single villain that we have seen has like world domination in mind, which again if you have an old school goal like that, the only question you have is that how is it actually planned? Could it be Could it be foolproof? Does it have flaws? Does it sound very simple? Does it literally sound just like a dream, or does it or is it just simply all mouth but nothing to show for? And for Drago Bludvist, character, I would say it sounded like I would say something like between bulletproof slash dream, basically. I would say it's something like because I would say it's something between them, like bulletproof slash dream, because definitely because you could definitely feel his army and dragons and everything. He had everything to kind of gain this world domination. The only question is, because again, we only see him try to take over Berg. We haven't seen him actually in action try to take over the world. So that's why I'm saying it looks bulletproof, it sounds bulletproof, but it also kind of sounds like a dream, because again, we haven't seen him totally in action to go up against the entire world in this case. We only saw him up against Berg, but there was potential in there. So I will kind of give him credit for that. Now, one of the things that when it comes to villains' weaknesses, let's talk about that, because I give him a lot of praises. Like I said, from intelligence, from muscles, from combat, manipulation. Which also I will also add into this, knowledge, which again kind of goes to the intelligence part and everything. So yeah, I mean, there's a lot of pros I have, for Drago Bludvist's character. But let's talk about the flaws in this case. One of the things that you can immediately see, when you see him, is overconfidence. Overconfidence, arrogance, a bit full of himself, and of course, his ego. So overconfidence. So again, let me repeat one more time: overconfidence, arrogance, full of himself, and ego. Those are the 4 things that you immediately see when you see someone like Drago. That's the first thing you see immediately. Kind of like those flaws and everything. Now, sometimes in a villain they show all too clearly. Sometimes they don't show that much. Like the villains are trying really well to kind of lie down. To make like those flaws very secretive, so that nobody else can sense them or see them. But for Drago, I would say it's kind of like gray zone. You can see it, but at the same time, there's a lot of elements in his character that you kind of you can see he's also trying to hide it. I mean, for example, as I said before, arrogance. One of the things that usually villains do, they underestimate the hero, and that's basically what Drago Bludvist did. One of the main mistakes: to underestimate your opponent, which in this case was Hiccup. I mean, at first, you could kind of also see he was interested to see this Dragon Master, which was Hiccup Haddock, but everything. But later on, when he realized who he was and everything, he kind of saw him this guy, this kid is nothing more than a piece of shit, like a nobody who's trying to be somebody. He's no threat to me and everything. But later on, he realized that Hiccup is much more capable than he realized. Like, for example, when you have this confrontation between Hiccup and Drago, when Hiccup was fighting this baby dragon and Drago was on the Toothless, he was he's not yours anymore. He belongs to the Alpha. But please, oh great Dragon Master, try to take him. He will not miss a second time. And immediately when Hiccup was trying to reason with Toothless, Drago, you can see the change, especially the way how the eyes was moving. And Drago was like, how are you doing that? And that is also, in that moment, you can see that arrogance. You can see that overconfidence, you can see that Drago, even though he was smart, but he wasn't that smart. Or basically, as if to quote Yoda, much to learn, you still have. And that's what Drago had. He had a lot more to learn, because the thing is, Drago only knew how to conquer dragons through fear. Hiccup was doing the opposite. He was trying to win them over with, with friendship, with trust, with kindness, with compassion, with love, things that Drago didn't know, which is why his control, in a way, was actually way more weaker than Hiccup's, So that, again, and at that, all that basically connects with what I said before about Drago. Arrogance, overconfidence, full of himself, ego. Those are the four things that basically they basically gave a big bite up his ass, basically, because of because of basically, because he underestimated Hiccup. He underestimated his ways of dragon mastery. I just put it, that way, which also brought him into a panic mode. Because the thing is, when you have a villain that, yes, I'm on the brink of winning this battle. I'm on the brink to have this, let's just say, Burke domination. Let's just put it that way, But when, Toothless with Hiccup tried to, challenge the Bewilderbeast and Drago, and when basically you see all the dragons basically abandoning the Bewilderbeast side and going to Toothless side, you can see Drago, panicking. You can see, which is, again, very typical thing what villains do. Because when something doesn't go as planned, what happens? They panic. And that's exactly what Drago did. We're like, no, fight back. What's the matter with you? And then, of course, at the end, when he's like, fight! And then, they just simply blast him away, like it was nothing. He even lost, his fake prosthetic arm, in the process and everything. But the one thing also, I would say, it's kind of like a pro, but at the same time negative for Drago, is when Hiccup was trying to reason with him, and he's like, this is where it takes to earn a dragon's loyalty. Let this end now. You can see Hiccup, didn't want to fight anymore. He wanted to reason with Drago until the end. And basically, Drago was like, never. Come on. Now, this at the same time, I was like, I would praise him, because it was like, okay, the guy has nothing to lose, but doesn't give a shit. He's going to fight until the very end. But that also could be a con. Not a con, sorry. But that could also be a negative, because when you have villains who go on fighting, even though they are all alone, they have nothing more to lose. They have zero army. They have zero, in this case, dragons. They're just simply him and his pet in this case, and they're still want to fight, but they know it's a fight they cannot win, and they still go on. Let's just say, if you try to fix Drago Bludvist's character, you can kind of, what I would have done is basically, I would have made Drago Bludvist, okay, shit, I lost the fight, I lost all the dragons. What to do? And basically, what you can do? I know, when you have a Drago as a type of warrior type, villain, you think it's dishonorable if you try to retreat. But in this case, retreat can also be very reasonable, can also be a very wise decision sometimes, because if you want to be, because basically you live to fight another day. And that's exactly what Drago Bludvist could have done. Live to fight for another day. But in the end, he didn't listen to reason. He didn't listen to whatever wisdom he had and everything. So all of this just simply went for him, down under. Oh, we have a comment, ladies and gentlemen. Let's see what we have here. I think I know the answer, but do you prefer villains over heroes? Well, yeah, that's true. That is true, my friend. Yeah, I'm on a villain life. Again, I have nothing against heroes. I honestly don't, but villains for me, no matter what project it is, from a movie, TV show, comic book, a novel, or a video game, it doesn't matter. The first thing I'm looking for is, does it have a good villain? So yeah, to answer your question, yes, I prefer villains over heroes. You know, yeah. I mean, again, I'm on a villain's life, so yeah, I do. So yeah, I do prefer villains more than heroes. Thank you for the question. I really appreciate it, man. Yeah. So again, when it comes to Drago Bludvist, there are all sorts of things you can dig up to about his character. When it comes to cons, pros and flaws and everything. But for me personally, that's kind of what I see it. For Drago Bludvist. Now again, some people might think like Hiccup. Like Drago Bludvist is the dark side of a Hiccup. I actually would disagree because like I would say he's more of a dark side for Valka than Hiccup, because like if you want to pick up someone who represents the dark side, then you have to go with Grimmel the Grizzly. Now Grimmel is actually the dark side of Hiccup. Now when it comes to Drago, no, he's much more Valka's. He's much more like Valka's dark side more than her son. But also, now speaking like, what if many of you wonder like, why do you think like, Drago Bludvist has an ego problem? Well, first and foremost, the very answer is not just simply from Drago's introduction, but also like, just the bloody answer is way over there when Stoic was talking about the flashback. He was like, oh, like he came all here, like all peaceful, talking soft and everything. Like, yeah, don't worry, guys. Don't worry, you all Viking bastards. I'm going to solve your dragon problem. But I only have one condition. You all must bow down and follow me. That's it. Just fall down your knees. Like sworn your loyalty to Drago Bludvist. Bow down, follow me all the way to the end, and I will solve your dragon problem. And then of course, everyone was like, ha 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 ha. They didn't, they didn't took him seriously. And he's like, let's see how well you do without me. And of course, what happens? He brings out the big guns, the dragons, and basically kills them, almost every one of them. I did say almost because Stoic did survive. If you haven't watched How to Train a Dragon 2, now you know. But anyway, just from that scene, you can see he has an ego, and he has an ego and he's full of himself. You can definitely see that, and again, after that, each and every scene, you can see that. But again, I will give him pros, which of course is that, he is quite a formidable fighter. He has intelligence alongside, dragon knowledge and everything. He has, also knowledge of warfare. He knows how to control the dragons and his men, and also now, was he the one who created the traps? I don't know. But the one thing for certainly is, like I said, he has a massive intelligence. And he, again, even today, I will still see him as like, one of the most dangerous and biggest threats that Hiccup has ever faced. Like I would say out of all of them, Grimmel comes closely, but I would say out of all of them, Drago is the one that made a lot more damage to Hiccup rather than, anyone else. I would go as far like he made a lot more damage than even like Viggo Grimborn from Dragon's Race to the Edge. Like, Drago did much more damage even than him, or even more than Johan, because even though every single one of those villains, did some damage to the main hero, Drago did a lot more because, very simply, he killed his father. Or even worse, he made Toothless, his own best friend, turn up against him, and at the same time make him, through the Bewilder Beast, made him kill his father, which is far, far more worse than anything. One of the worst things, because I said, one of the worst things a villain can do is that when they destroy everything and everyone that the heroes love. That's one of the worst things they can do. And Drago actually did that. So overall, going back with everything what I said, when it comes to the overall rating, I will give Drago Bludvist, even though, again, he lacks in, like I said, he's overconfident, he's ego, he's, full of himself, he's arrogant, and he lacks, like a big amount of knowledge of how to basically train a dragon, no pun intended, because again, like I said, Drago trained him through fear, Hiccup through, compassion, kindness, love, trust, and friendship, so if you want to be a great dragon master, then learn that as well, because only then you could be, I think, unstoppable. Because if you're just trying to conquer them out of fear, that's not the type of control that lasts forever. That's for sure. Because one day the dragons can find someone who is even better, and there you go. Here goes a dragon army, which of course it happened in the end. But overall, with that lack of, like I said, with that lack of intelligence, and he's his bullet, his dream was kind of like bulletproof, but at the same time, it was sounding more like a dream because again, we only have seen him conquer Burke. We didn't see him do like a worldwide operation or anything. So yeah, so far, so I will give Drago Bludvist. Nevertheless, I will still give Drago Bludvist an solid 8 out of 10 as a villain. I really liked him, and I still liked him. Even still today, he is my favorite number 1 How to Train Your Dragon villain. Very, Grimald does come very close, but overall, he is still my number 1. And with that, here comes the end of another Villains Review episode. And with that, all of you Shadow and Villainy aficionados, you know the drill from commenting, liking, subscribing. Give me your own personal thoughts about villainy in general in fiction. Give me your personal thoughts about Drago Bludvist's character. Which How to Train a Dragon villain is your favorite? Liking. And you all know the rest. So until next time for my another upcoming Villains Review episode. Until then, Lord of Shadows, signing off. See you guys next time. In the good words of Beetlejuice, later, fuckers.